The moment our hands brushed reaching for the same vanilla latte at the crowded Loop coffee shop, something electric passed between us. I looked up into those steady blue eyes and felt my carefully built walls crack, just a little, even though I'd sworn off strangers after the last heartbreak that left me questioning everything about who I was. "Small world," the man said with a warm, crooked smile that reached his eyes. He was tall, with neatly trimmed brown hair and the kind of jawline that belonged in magazine ads, dressed in a crisp button-down that suggested he had just come from a professional meeting. "Jordan," he introduced himself, extending his hand properly this time. "Alex," I replied, shaking it. His grip was firm but gentle. We ended up sharing a table because the place was packed, and what started as polite small talk about the rainy Chicago weather turned into a conversation that lasted 2 hours. He listened when I mentioned my job in marketing and how I'd moved here from a small town in Iowa to escape the constant judgment. I didn't say the word gay right away, but something in his attentive nod told me he understood without me spelling it out. By the time we parted, numbers exchanged, I felt lighter than I had in months. Jordan wasn't like the guys on the apps who only wanted one thing. He talked about architecture and his love for restoring old buildings, about how Chicago's skyline always inspired him to see possibility in broken things. It was refreshing. Over the next week, we met again. First for a walk along the lakefront, where the wind whipped off Lake Michigan and we laughed about slipping on wet leaves. Then dinner at a quiet Italian place in Wicker Park. Jordan shared bits of his life. Growing up in the suburbs, his passion for helping young designers find their voice at his firm. He asked about my family without pushing, and when I mentioned the strained calls with my parents who still hoped I'd find the right girl, he didn't flinch or offer empty platitudes. "That sounds heavy," he said simply. "You don't have to carry it alone." It was the first time in a long time someone made me feel seen. My friends noticed the change when I met them for drinks at a bar in Lincoln Park. "Who's the guy putting that smile on your face?" my best friend Mia teased. She was the one person from back home who had stuck by me when I came out 3 years ago. I shrugged, playing it cool. But inside, the connection with Jordan felt different. Deeper. Like maybe, just maybe, I could let someone in without fearing the fallout. One evening, as we sat on a bench in Millennium Park watching the bean reflect the city lights, Jordan turned to me. "There's something about you, Alex. You make the chaos of this city feel manageable." His voice was soft, and when his fingers brushed mine, I didn't pull away. The city hummed around us, but in that moment, it was just the two of us. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to hope that love didn't have to come with conditions or secrets that could tear everything apart. We kept seeing each other almost every day after that. Jordan took me to his favorite rooftop bar overlooking the river, where we talked until the sky turned pink. He told me about the projects he was working on, the old warehouses he wanted to turn into community spaces. I opened up more about the marketing campaigns that drained me and the quiet fear that my family would never accept the real me. He never judged. Instead, he asked questions that made me think deeper about what I really wanted. By the end of the second week, when he walked me to my apartment door in the Gold Coast and kissed me goodnight, soft, lingering, full of promise, I knew I was falling. Hard. The kind of falling that made the world feel brighter, the air sharper, and every ordinary moment suddenly meaningful. But even in the glow of that new connection, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered caution. Jordan was still a stranger in so many ways. I didn't know his full story yet, and I hadn't told my family anything. Still, for now, I pushed the doubts aside. Chicago felt alive with possibility, and Jordan was the spark that had lit it all. The weeks that followed blurred into a beautiful routine that I never wanted to end. Jordan and I explored the city like two kids discovering it for the first time. We rode the L train to Wrigley Field on a crisp Saturday, cheering for the Cubs, even though neither of us knew much about baseball. We spent lazy Sundays wandering through the Art Institute, where Jordan pointed out details in the paintings that I had never noticed before. Every conversation peeled back another layer, and the more I learned about him, the more I wanted to know. One night, after a quiet dinner at a Thai place in Andersonville, we ended up back at his apartment in Logan Square. The space was filled with books and photographs he had taken on his travels. Images of old factories and sunsets over the lake that captured the same quiet hope I felt when I was with him. We sat on his couch with mugs of tea, and for the first time, I told him everything about my family. How my dad still sent me articles about traditional values, how my brother joked about me finding a wife at every holiday call, how the pressure made me feel like I was living two lives. Jordan listened without interrupting, his hand resting lightly on my knee. "I get it," he said softly when I finished. "My own parents weren't exactly thrilled when I told them who I was. It took time, but some bridges take longer to rebuild." He didn't push for details about his past, and I didn't press. Instead, he shared how his work as an architect had become his way of creating safe spaces for people like us. His voice carried a quiet strength that made my chest tighten with something I hadn't felt in years: genuine hope. At work the next day, the contrast hit me hard. My boss made a casual joke about settling down during a team meeting, and a couple of colleagues laughed. I smiled through it, but inside I felt the familiar twist of shame. That evening, Jordan met me after work with takeout and a playlist of songs he thought I'd like. We ate on my balcony, overlooking the twinkling lights of the city, and when he pulled me into a gentle hug, whispering that I didn't have to pretend with him, I let the tears come. It was the first time I had cried in front of anyone since coming out. He held me without saying a word, just steady and present. My best friend Mia pulled me aside one afternoon at our favorite cafe. "He seems good for you, Alex. But be careful. You're falling fast for someone you barely know." I brushed it off, but her words lingered. Still, when Jordan surprised me with tickets to a rooftop movie screening under the stars, all doubts melted. We sat wrapped in a blanket, his arm around my shoulders, and for those 2 hours the world felt right. The calls from home grew more frequent. My mom asked when I was coming back for Thanksgiving, hinting that a nice girl from church would be there. I dodged the questions, but the guilt settled heavy in my stomach. Jordan noticed a change in my mood during one of our evening walks along the Riverwalk. "You don't have to face them alone," he said, squeezing my hand. "Whatever you decide, I'm here." His words wrapped around me like a promise, and in that moment I believed him completely. The passion between us wasn't just physical, it was the way he saw me, the way he made me want to be better, braver. Chicago had given me freedom, but Jordan was giving me the courage to claim it. Our relationship deepened into something that felt unbreakable. We spent weekends driving out to Starved Rock for hikes, where the fall colors painted the cliffs in fiery reds and golds. Jordan would stop to take photos, and I'd watch him work, marveling at how focused and alive he looked. One afternoon, as we stood at the top of a lookout point with the Illinois River winding below us, he turned to me and said the words I'd been waiting to hear. "I'm falling in love with you, Alex." My heart soared. I pulled him close and whispered it back, the wind carrying our voices across the valley. Back in the city, we introduced each other to our closest circles. My friends adored him instantly. Mia pulled me aside after a group dinner and said, "He's the real deal." Jordan's friends were a lively mix of artists and professionals who welcomed me without question. For the first time, my two worlds felt like they could merge. We even talked about the future, small things like planning a trip to New York, bigger things like how we wanted to build a life together. The identity struggles that had haunted me for years started to feel lighter. Jordan encouraged me to journal about my feelings, to explore what being out fully might look like. I began to imagine telling my family, not with fear, but with quiet strength. One evening, after a particularly long day at work where a client had made a thinly veiled comment about family values, I came home exhausted. Jordan was waiting with my favorite meal and a massage. As we lay on the couch talking late into the night, he opened up more about his own past hurts, how prejudice had cost him relationships and forced him to move cities. His vulnerability matched mine, and the bond felt unbreakable. But then the cracks appeared. I noticed Jordan checking his phone more often, stepping away for quick calls. When I asked, he brushed it off as work stress. One night, I saw him outside my building talking intently to a well-dressed older man I didn't recognize. The man handed him an envelope before driving off in a luxury car. Jordan looked tense when he came upstairs, but he kissed me and said it was nothing. I pushed the unease down, telling myself that everyone had secrets. Our love was too strong for shadows to ruin it. The peak came on a perfect October night. We cooked together in his kitchen, laughing over spilled sauce, then danced slowly to an old song playing from his speaker. In the soft glow of the string lights, he looked at me and said, "You make me believe in forever, Alex." I believed it too. The passion, the trust, the way we fit, it all felt destined. But destiny, I was about to learn, sometimes hides the hardest truths. The revelation hit like a freight train one rainy Thursday evening. We were at my apartment, sharing pizza and planning our first holiday together, when Jordan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, face paling. "I need to tell you something," he said, voice shaking. What followed shattered everything. Jordan confessed that my father had hired him 6 months ago. A private investigator friend of the family had tipped them off about my life in Chicago, and Dad, desperate to save me from what he called my choices, had paid Jordan, an architect with a side gig and discreet consultations, to befriend me, report back, and gently steer me home. The coffee shop meeting wasn't chance. Jordan had engineered it. The envelope I had seen was the latest payment. I stared at him, the pizza growing cold between us. "You were spying on me?" The words came out hoarse. Jordan's eyes filled with tears. "At first, yes. But then I got to know you, Alex. The real you. I stopped reporting after the second week. I fell in love for real. I was going to tell your dad I quit, but I was scared of losing you." Anger surged through me like fire. I stood up, knocking over a glass. "You let me fall for you while you were being paid to fix me, to change me." The betrayal cut deeper than any rejection from my family ever had. All the late-night talks, the kisses, the promises, had any of it been real? Jordan reached for me, but I stepped back. "I need space," I said, voice breaking. He left without another word, the door clicking shut like a final period on everything we had built. The next days were a blur of pain. I called in sick to work, ignored Mia's texts, and stared at the ceiling replaying every moment. The identity crisis I thought I had overcome roared back. Was I so broken that even love had to be a lie? I replayed Jordan's words, his tears, but the deception burned too hot. I booked a flight home for the weekend, needing distance from the city that now reminded me of him everywhere. At the airport, waiting for my flight, I felt the full weight of the secret. Everything I had believed about us, the passionate connection, the safety I felt, was built on a foundation of lies. The world I'd started to trust crumbled, leaving me more lost than before I met him. Back in my small Iowa hometown, the familiar streets felt both comforting and suffocating. My family greeted me with hugs and questions about my single life. Over Sunday dinner, my dad brought up the same old topics: church, grandkids, settling down. The tension built until I couldn't hold it anymore. "I'm gay, Dad. I've been gay my whole life, and pretending hasn't changed that." The room went silent. My brother muttered something under his breath. My mom's eyes filled with tears, but Dad's face hardened. "We try to help you," he said quietly. "That's why we sent someone." The pieces clicked. He admitted hiring Jordan, thinking a professional could talk sense into me. The betrayal wasn't just Jordan's. It was my family's too. I stormed out, driving aimlessly until I pulled over at the old park where I had hidden my first crush as a teenager. The isolation hit hard. Society's quiet judgments, my family's love twisted into control, my own doubts, they all crashed down. Jordan texted that night. "I quit the job the day I told you. I chose you. I'm sorry I waited too long." I didn't reply, but the next morning, Mia called. "He showed up at my door last night. He's staying in a motel here. Says he'll wait as long as it takes." I confronted him at the motel. Jordan looked exhausted, eyes red. "I sacrificed the paycheck, the reference from your dad's friend, everything. Because loving you honestly is worth more than any secret. I know I hurt you, but I'm fighting for us now." His voice cracked with genuine pain. The societal pushback hit when a local acquaintance spotted us talking and whispered to my mom. The family pressure mounted, but Jordan's willingness to stand there, exposed and sorry, started to chip at my anger. I flew back to Chicago alone, but the confrontation had shifted something inside me. The crisis forced me to face who I really was. Not the version my family wanted, not the version afraid of love, but the man who deserved honesty and deserved to love openly. The weeks after the revelation tested every part of me, but slowly, healing began. Jordan respected my space at first, sending only one message a week, simple notes about his day, never pressuring. I threw myself into work, channeling the pain into a new campaign about authenticity that ironically won praise from my team. Mia checked on me daily, reminding me that growth often came from the hardest moments. One crisp November evening, Jordan appeared at my door with 2 coffees, the same vanilla lattes from our first meeting. "I'm not here to ask for forgiveness yet," he said. "I'm here to show you I've changed. No more secrets." I told my own family about us, even though they cut contact years ago. "I'm all in, Alex, for real this time." We talked for hours on the balcony, the city lights twinkling below. I laid out every hurt, every fear. He listened, apologized again, and shared how the guilt had changed him too. The misunderstanding and betrayal had forced both of us to confront our deepest insecurities. In the end, I realized the passion we shared wasn't destroyed. It had been forged stronger through the fire. My family called a few days later. Dad's voice was hesitant. "We were wrong to interfere. We just want you happy." It wasn't full acceptance, but it was a start. Jordan and I took it slow, rebuilding trust with honest dates and open conversations. I came out fully at work, and the support surprised me. The journey had taught me that identity wasn't something to hide. It was something to own. Months later, standing on that same lakeshore where we had shared so many moments, Jordan took my hand. "Thank you for giving us another chance." The skyline glowed behind us, bright and full of promise. I had grown, from the man who feared strangers to the man who chose love despite the cost. True or false? Some secrets in love are too big to overcome?